Hi there! In this video I want to share a beginner's guide with tips for building characters through chaos manifestations, CZN's roguelike game mode. If you're unfamiliar with key concepts like epiphanies or other combat mechanics, such as mental stress or action count, I strongly recommend watching my combat guide first. It will make it easier to follow along with the topics discussed here. For the sake of brevity, I'll avoid repeating information already covered there. With that out of the way, let's get into it. First, if it wasn't obvious already, let's start with what you gain from doing chaos missions, aside from the joy of getting to play your new favorite game. The main goal is to optimize your character's save data, which is a core aspect of a character's build. This is essentially a snapshot of the final state of a dungeon run, including all of the character cards and upgrades, as well as 3 equipment slots. A character comes with 8 cards in total, 4 of which are the starting point of your dungeon exploration, while 4 unique cards can be obtained during your battles via Epiphanies. Customization is achieved as 4 of the character's specific cards can be upgraded into 5 different variations, again via Epiphanies, where you get to choose among 3 out of 5 possible options. Each character has a default save data file, so that you can use them outside of the roguelike mode even before doing your first run. These default files have all 8 base versions of the character cards unlocked, but no upgrades or equipment. Therefore, optimization means A. Acquiring all character cards and their desired upgrades, B. Removing unwanted cards, C. Adding valuable neutral and monster cards, and D. Obtaining gear with useful stats and effects. You may even repeat the process to build multiple save data files per character, if they are able to fill different roles or offer upgrades that solve different problems. Don't be discouraged if your first runs don't meet all of the criteria of an optimal build. The lower difficulty dungeons grant you less opportunities to gain epiphanies and gear, so you may not even manage to obtain all character cards on your first attempts, let alone their upgrades. When choosing your lineup for your dungeon exploration, there's a toggle at the top right that lets you activate Deep Trauma mode. This is inaccessible if none of your characters have experienced a mental breakdown before, so it's only relevant for your second run and onwards. When meeting this requirement, you can activate the function. Deep Trauma comes with penalties, for instance stress accumulates faster, and you will have to play more cards if a character suffers a breakdown. There are also individual character effects that specify certain conditions under which stress is accumulated, though these aren't too impactful. In return, your chance to have epiphanies increases, and your save data capacity is larger. Since the main goal is save data optimization, for which epiphanies are a major factor, you essentially always want this activated, unless your power level is too low to clear the dungeon. On that note, building good save data for all 3 team members simultaneously is not feasible in the early game. Therefore, you should prioritize 1 character per run, which you want to optimize as much as possible, while disregarding the others. Epiphanies occur randomly during battles, so you can't do anything about that, but you sometimes encounter events that grant epiphanies. Some may be randomly given to 1 team member, but others let you choose. Always choose the same character until you're done, which is the case after a total of at least 8 epiphanies. You can also obtain items or cards to trigger epiphanies, so outside of the early levels, you should be able to get at least 1 character fully decked out. Once you reach account level 30, a second stage in Chaos Manifestations unlocks, which should make building multiple characters easier, as more battles equates to more opportunities to obtain epiphanies and gear. Aside from getting epiphanies, you also want to remove or convert some or all of your 3 basic starter cards. These are generic deal damage, heal or shield cards, which are deadweight in your hand, especially when they don't fit a character's role. For some reason, damage dealers have heal or shield cards, and healers have attack cards, so at the very least you want to get rid of those. There are some exceptions to the rule though. For instance, Maylin has a skill that draws her basic cards and reduces their cost to 0. In her case, you'd absolutely want to remove her shield card so that it doesn't get drawn by her skill, but you must retain her basic attack cards for the skill to work. You can remove or convert cards via events or in shops. Card conversion is a bit tricky, since the offered card should work for a character whose base card you want to get rid of. But card removal is straightforward, just select the card you want to delete from the save data. Gear acquisition follows the same logic as with cards. During the early game, prioritize 1 character whose save data you're building up. You can obtain gear after winning a fight, via events or in shops. The gear will come with a recommendation, but it's best ignored. Even if you were trying to equip the whole team, it often was completely off, as it seems to disregard the gear effect. Here, the weapon is suggested for the support, because the others are defense scaling. However, all weapons have attack as a base stat, and this effect works perfectly well on Khalib, who has high cost cards. But as I was saying, just prioritize your main target first. You can also replace gear with newer ones if you found something better. The best and most reliable source for cards and gear are shops. When starting a dungeon, you should open up the map and search for resting areas with a merchant icon. A regular resting area is just a yellow campfire, whereas the ones with a merchant have a booth at the top right. You should choose a path that lets you visit as many of these as possible. There's always a guaranteed one before the final boss, but the rest of the map is procedurally generated. If there are no merchants at all, you may even consider rerolling the dungeon. Every resting area offers a choice between healing 20% of the team's HP and recovering a bit of stress, or performing so-called training for 50 credits. By choosing one, the other option becomes unavailable. Training grants you the choice among 3 neutral cards from the general pool, which are class restricted. Here, the card on the left is grayed out because there's no striker on our lineup. You have to pay the credits up front before you get to see the options, so it's a bit of a gamble whether you get something worth your money. If you're low on credits, it may be better to just heal up. You can also temporarily leave the dungeon from these areas and resume at a later point. When there is a merchant, you can choose between cards and gear at varying rarities and prices. You can refresh the options multiple times at a small credit cost. Most notably, you get to buy 1 card removal per merchant. Since most characters want to get rid of their 3 base cards, you would ideally want to pass at least 3 merchants when focusing on one character, assuming you don't encounter any events that provide card removal or conversion. Of course, you'll need enough credits when reaching a resting area, which you obtain through battles and sometimes events. Reaching a merchant without at least enough credits to buy the removal, which was priced at 80 credits during the playtest, would be a wasted node on your run. Sometimes, after defeating a stage in Deep Trauma mode, this imposing opponent will make an appearance. You get the choice to play a zero-cost card called Fear, which allows you to flee the battle upon a successful dice roll. However, I strongly advise against running from this fight, since defeating this enemy was the only way during the early game to obtain gear of the highest rarity. It has an annoying mechanic which forces you to alternate between your characters when playing cards. If you ignore this gimmick, that is by playing 2 cards from the same character consecutively, it will make a powerful attack, every time, including mental breakdown cards. So long as you keep this in mind and properly alternate your plays, it's not that difficult though. If you only have cards of one character in hand, you may even want to end your turn early. Ego skills are excluded from this restriction, so you are free to use those at any time. I received this beauty of a weapon from this fight, which grants unconditional weakness damage for all attacks, as well as bonus AP and card draws when breaking a target. This vastly outperforms any lower tier equipment. Since we're on the topic of enemy mechanics, let me make this quick detour to address another troublesome opponent. It puts a card called Shackles into your hand that increases the speed by which its action count advances. Once it attacks, your hand is completely blocked. If you can't defeat this enemy quickly, it's best to sacrifice the AP every round to get rid of the card. Otherwise, you'll get quickly locked out from playing your hand and have your run end prematurely. Since the optimization goal is hopefully clear by now, here are a few small tips before moving on. During battles, you should focus down targets that plan an attack, since your HP carries over between battles. When you're close to ending a fight, it's preferable to delay for a turn when the enemy uses abilities that don't deal damage. You can tell this from the icons underneath the action count. When there's no or very little predicted damage to your team's HP, you're safe for the round. Doing this grants you another turn to heal up and fish for Epiphanies. When looking at the options for an Epiphany, it's easy to get lost in the effect descriptions. You can inspect the original card effect at any time by clicking on the button on the top right. I hope they make it easier to view the original side by side with its upgrades, but assuming they keep it as is, you can at least go back and forth. There are special Epiphanies that add further value to one of your upgrade options. A special icon denotes the additional effect, make sure you don't miss this. Then, don't sleep on neutral cards. In the beginning, It's easy to skim over these, but some of them are quite useful and fit into almost any deck. These are the ones you obtain from events and shops, though there are also some higher rarity ones that can drop randomly from monsters. They can even obtain their own upgrades via Epiphanies. All of this just adds more variations to your decks and should be thought of as optional. Obtaining rare cards or special Epiphanies is a happy coincidence and not something to actively target. Otherwise, I can see many people quickly burn themselves out. There's a lot of RNG involved in this process, and sometimes it's healthier to settle for good enough. In other words, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Finally, when you conclude a stage by beating the final boss, you get to duplicate one card in a character's deck. Often enough, the choices include one card per character, though unfortunately again randomized. I've also had runs where 2 cards were offered for one character, so you better pray that your main target is among the options. Note that neutral cards can also be among these choices, so it's best to avoid adding too many cards to your decks, and particularly not those that you wouldn't want to duplicate. On higher difficulty runs, you get more than one stage to fight, so you will also have more opportunities to duplicate cards. From the playtest, we've seen that from level 30 onwards you get to fight 2 stages, but who's to say there won't be even more in the late game. At the end of it all, a save data is generated for each team member. You can immediately delete them here if you know they are not worth keeping. The TB value for each save is only a rough estimate of its value though, you know better whether you had a good run for that character. When characters experience a mental breakdown, their save data may end up being corrupted. You can't delete these as you normally would, even if you know they are worthless. Instead, you have to go to the Epiphanies Center, where you can either give counseling to repair the save data, or delete their memories for a low credit cost, thereby removing the save data. Counseling takes you through multiple choices where you have to guess what male Korean gacha developers believe to be the way into a woman's heart or mind. Know that you can only do 3 of these sessions per day, and the currency overlaps for some reason with the dating system. If you are out of tickets but wish to keep a save data, make sure to wait for daily reset and don't hit delete memories, otherwise it's gone forever. From a character's profile, you can manage all available non-corrupted save data. You can delete them in bulk by setting a threshold TB value, set favorites, assign names and colors, and lock the best ones. Don't slack on this. Managing this properly will likely save a lot of time when you have multiple builds per character. With that, you should have a solid grasp of CZN's save data process. I was considering covering other systems like Arc City, but I think you'll figure this out on your own. If you've played other gacha games before, most of the rest of CZN will feel familiar anyway. There's just one last tip I want to leave you with. When starting out, you'll have access to the beginner banner or special rescue request. It uses standard pulls, but comes with a 20% discount and you're guaranteed a 5-star character within 50 pulls. Even if you pull a 5-star early, you'll still get another one at the 50 pull pity, so make sure you commit to this banner until it's done. For rerollers, you'll want to aim for at least one additional 5-star from it. That brings me to the end of this video. I hope you found this guide helpful and that you're excited to start building your first team. I think I've covered most of what's important in my pre-launch guides, though I would have liked to do an overview of the 4-star characters and potential teams. Unfortunately, kits are likely getting adjusted, so any guide I'd start working on now would probably be outdated by the time it comes out. With CZN's launch right around the corner and Stellar Sora coming in from left field, I'll be taking a short break for the next few days, but I hope to see you all on the flip side. In any case, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.